Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at Dwarves in Trouble, put out by Hex Games. And this is a kind of a take-that card game where each dwarf is trying to get rid of as much of their treasure that they have stolen from the dragon's hoard as possible, because if the dragon shows up, it's going to eat every single dwarf except for the one dwarf who has the least amount of its hoard in his pocketses. So what you're trying to do is get rid of your coins by playing different kinds of cards that will allow you to give your coins in a number of humorous kinds of ways to the other dwarves at the table, or placing those gold coins back into the dragon's hoard where they originally came from. So it's a very light, very fun game that you can play and have a great time using your best dwarven accents as possible. But let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts in just a few moments. So at the beginning of a game of Dwarves in Trouble, each person is going to be taking 20 gold pieces into their own personal cache. They'll draw 4 cards off the top of the deck, and once everybody has done that, we're ready to go. The remainder of the coins are left in what is called now the Dragon's Treasure, and play can begin with the person randomly chosen, and then we'll continue clockwise to its conclusion. Now there are 4 different kinds of cards that are in the deck. First of all, you have the dragon card, and the dragon card is simply going to be the end game trigger. It's going to go on the very bottom of the deck. Then you also have 3 other kinds of cards. You have event cards, and whenever somebody draws an event card into their hand, they have to immediately play it. If you draw multiple event cards into your hand at the same time, you can choose which one to play and then discard the others. You also have Counteract Cards, which have a little shield up here in the top corner of the card, and these are basically cards that you can play outside of your own personal turn in defense of yourself. Then finally you have Dwarf Cards, which have this little coin on the top corner of the card. It has a little quote that you should say in your best dwarven accent, and then it has a ability or an action down at the bottom. And there is a lot of iconography in the game, but the game does come with a pretty good player aid that lists every single possible iconography that is in the game, and each person gets a copy of this as the game begins. On a dwarf's turn, he's going to be taking his hand of cards here and playing them if they have the gold icon in them during his turn to, in essence, get rid of the gold. Basically, as I said in the introduction, you want to have the least number of gold at the end of the game so that the dragon eats everybody else and not you. So your job on your turn is to get rid of gold and give it to other people, put it back in the treasure, whatever it might be. So you have all of these different cards here. For example, you have this card here that says a whip around, which means that all dwarves can give 1 coin to a dwarf of the person who's playing this card's choice. So if now the rule book does say that you need to say these in the best dwarven accent as you possibly can. So you would do something like, "Oh, it's a whip around, boyos," and we're gonna give it to him. And so everybody gives a coin to that person. And then we'll play something like, I don't know. "Hey, you've got something in your collar. Here you go, have 2 coins." Like that. And then they can play something else like, "Oh, roar!" So everybody gets to put 2 coins back into the treasure here. And like so. And then let's say that he wants to stop on that point. These are put into a discard pile, and the next person goes. At the beginning of your turn, let's say it comes back around to me and I only have 1 card in my hand. At the beginning of your turn, you're going to draw cards until you have a hand of 4. And it is at this point that if you have any event cards show up in your hand, you've got to immediately play those. If you get more than 1, you can choose which ones. So this is basically how the game plays. It's a very light, very fast, very fun game. Those event cards can be kind of hindering, though. Let's get to some of them. For example, here it says tax rebate. Take 3 coins from the dragon's treasure. So if this one comes up, you have to play it and take 3 coins out of the dragon's treasure and put it back into your own cash. There are other ones like this one here that says Landslide. Each player discards all their cards and draws the same number of cards back. So if this had been in my hand, let's say it was one of the 3 that I drew, I would have to play it immediately, discard, and then draw 3 back. All right, so that's another one. Let's see if we can get to another one here. There's another tax rebate, gain 3 coins from the treasure. This one says, it's a trap, so you discard all of your cards, which means basically your turn would be over. This one says, discard all your cards and return 2 coins to the dragon's treasure. So this isn't bad. You would have to discard all of your cards, your turn would be over, but you would be able to add 2 coins back into the dragon's treasure. So there's just a lot of neat things here. This one says tax, return 3 coins to the dragon's treasure. Narrow passage, you can only play 1 card on this turn. This is how the game plays with players taking turns playing cards, defending themselves on other people's turns until that dragon card is drawn or somebody has gotten rid of all of their dragon treasure. That person would be the winner. If the game continues until the dragon card is drawn, then whoever has the least gold at that point is the winner of the game. And that's how you play Dwarves in Trouble. Now, you guys know just as much as the next person that I am a sucker for Dwarven-themed games. I just like dwarves. I like playing dwarves in RPGs. I like being dwarves in other kinds of games. It's just one of those kinds of characters that I just identify with, I guess, for one reason or another. I don't know why, but I really enjoy dwarf games. So when I first saw the box with the great artwork on top of it and the fact that it was Dwarves in Trouble, so I knew dwarves were involved, I just was drawn immediately to this game, and it really kind of skyrocketed to the top of my queue because of, first of all, how it looked and the fact that dwarves were involved in the game. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get to my pros, because I've already mentioned one of them, and that is the design. The graphic design, the artwork of this game is great. The cards look great. They're black bordered, yeah, which make them look good. They're more susceptible, in my opinion, to showing those dings and scrapes and bruises throughout the course of their life, but they do look very good. And the backside of the cards look very good as well because of the artwork that's on that side. So I think they did a great job with the graphic layout, the design, the artwork that's all there. Even the event cards, I liked the fact that they were not fully colored in event cards because that differentiated them a little bit more. They were landscape and the other cards are portrait. So there is that delineation, but I also like the fact that the event cards were non-colored, the pictures in them at least, so that provided just another level of differentiation. So loved the graphic design of the game. My second pro is the fact that I love the way the game plays. I'm usually wary about enjoying take-that games because sometimes they can be really mean. But this game is a take-that game that is very jovial and very funny and very hilarious, and so that meanness factor that usually is associated with a take-that game is kind of alleviated because of the lighthearted nature that is in it. One of the cool things, and this is the kind of rule that I usually don't like in a game where they suggest that you do something that is a little bit goofy, quoting those lines on the top of every card in your best dwarven accent is a really fun thing. And some people are more comfortable with that than others. I understand that completely. But that is one of the things I think that helped alleviate the meanness of the take that mechanism. Because in essence, what you're doing when you're giving gold to somebody else is you are basically saying, you're losing and I'm not. And, you know, if you really strip it down to that brass tacks, that's really what's happening. And that can feel mean. But because of all of the goofy nature of the game, and it doesn't go over the top goofy, it's not. It's very fun. So I liked that. Another thing that I liked about the game was the fact that it did not take a long time to play. You're talking about 20, 30 minutes, generally speaking, unless something or else happens, because once you're drawing those cards, the deck is the timer, so to speak. When that deck runs out because the dragon card is on the bottom, the game is over. And so I did like the fact that it did not overstay its welcome. Now, with all of that having been said, we do need to talk about some of the cons of the game. And that quite simply is one in particular, and it really is a big con for me because I think it completely throws the entire game off of its kilter, and that is the event cards. And the reason I say that is because some of the event cards are rather anemic. They don't really do much at all. Some of them even help you, but a large number of them, well, at least it very seems like it, is that it makes you discard all of your cards, which is unfortunate because the cards are what you're using in order to do things in the game. So if you have to discard all of your cards at the beginning of your turn, well, that just means that your turn is over. And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a lot of cards in the event deck that do that. And so it can happen that people lose their turns a lot. That sucks some of the fun out of the game. I remember playing one game of this that a guy, another player was sitting across the table from me. He lost his turn by one device or another 5 times in a row. Wow, 5 times in a row. So basically, for most of the game, he was just sitting there doing nothing, just having coins given to him. He had, I would think, at least during the playing of the game, he didn't feel like he had any chance at winning. Turns out that he actually did win the game, which was really strange. We all kind of scratched our heads on that. But the actual playing of the game was not fun for him because he really didn't do anything. He just kind of sat there most of the time. And that's unfortunate because this is a really fun game, but those event cards really bring it down. And we tried a number of different things. We tried taking the event cards completely out of the game, and that felt like the game was a little bit too plain vanilla, you know. At that point there was nothing really to worry about, so there's some of the tension was gone. We tried just putting, you know, like half of the event cards in the deck, and that didn't seem to work out well either because we still we randomly did it, and we still it just turned out that we put most of those turn-ending event cards in the deck, and that's all that was there. So that messed it up. So then we tried to hand-pick the ones that we wanted in the game and left some of the other ones out, and it just turned out to where the event cards really just kind of hampered and restricted the game too much. Felt like it was trying to add something to the game that wasn't really supposed to be there because it just seemed anti what the game was all about. So it's a really huge thing for me. As a matter of fact, this one con, this is really the only problem I had with the game at all, is really going to dent this a lot because I just don't think it belongs. So with all that having been said, I'm going to give Dwarves in Trouble a 5 out of 10. It's just a middle of the road for me. I've tried trying to find some kind of sweet spot where it would be a higher thing for me because I really did enjoy the idea and the gameplay. Those event cards just really kind of, it was a wrench in the system. It just did not make sense to us at all. And everybody that I played this game with felt the exact same way. They wanted to enjoy the game a lot, but those event cards were just a huge barrier to their enjoyment of the game. So 5 out of 10. I still think it's a decent game. I think it's a good design. Those event cards just seem out of place. So 5 out of 10, middle of the road for me for Dwarves in Trouble. As always, try before you buy if you can. Watch other people's reviews, see what they say about it, and see if you can find some gameplay videos of it somewhere. whatever it might be. You might disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, it's a 5 out of 10. We'll see you guys on the flip side.